Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in to our channel, Iron Sharpens Iron. My name is Caden, but I also go by Preacher on my personal channel, The Crowning Entertainment. Today, I would like to talk to you a little bit about Christianity in general. We're just going to go ahead and get right into it. Starting off with my first slide here, defining modern Christianity. Well, what can we even say about what modern Christianity is? Today's Christianity is diverse, it's a jumbled mess. And so we could start off by asking, how did we get here? Why are we so divided? We got here through our own hubris. Inside of each of us is the desire to be right. And because of that, we tend to paint others with different opinions as evil or misled, rather than someone who genuinely is acting out of good faith based off of what they believe truly is right. Honestly, I believe that that's the vast majority of Christianity today. Most people genuinely believe that they are correct about their own personal beliefs. Yet, I do understand there's a lot of misleading going on within Christianity. There's a lot of false teachers, a lot of false prophets, and it is possible to be misled. So, what is this thing that we call Christianity? Can we compartmentalize Christianity in a way that is easy to understand and digest? I believe the answer is yes, we can do that. So we could start off with this question right here. How can so many different people read the same book and yet not agree on what that book says? There is a truth out there that many of us just believe what we're told by our spiritual authorities. That is very true. And the way the human condition works is that when we decide we believe something, we actually think we came to it on our own, even if we don't have readily available the reason why the thing is true. We don't have that within ourselves because the truth is we didn't get it from ourselves, but we don't know that. There are many psychological experiments that have been done in this vein, and it's true. The truth is, as humans, we want to pretend that we're right and that we came to it on our own because we have a deep desire to be right ourselves. So, how can so many different people read the same book and come away with different interpretations? It's pretty easy. Everyone wants to be right. Very few people want to actually follow what God says. So the next question we could ask, if we are trying to tackle this in the best faith possible, is what, if anything, can we ultimately agree upon? We've spent so much time becoming tribes waging war against each other while holding up the same banner with the same name on it. So can we actually find something that we agree upon? Ultimately, my whole goal with this series is to just provide the information as it is for you to make the decision. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a pastor. And I don't claim to hold spiritual authority whatsoever. So I'm not trying to teach you anything. If I say anything that is correct, the Holy Spirit would agree with me, and it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict you that it's the truth. I'm not really going to get into which doctrine or denomination or whatever I think is the right one or the correct one. I just want to provide all of this information wholesale because at the end of the day, I'm giving all of that information out because I feel like most people don't actually have that information readily available. That it's not ever really told to them. With that in mind, the next question we should ask is, should this information cause us to change our own interactions with each other? I believe any good information should ultimately cause you to make a change. You can talk about something night and day, but if you don't act upon it, you're worse than someone who's ignorant, because the ignorant person doesn't know, but you know. And so you actually are then called by that knowledge to make a change. If you don't, you're being actively traitorous to the concept of truth. So how can we get to the bottom of what Christianity is? We're going to take a top-down approach. We're going to try to take it as the whole and continue to cut it into halves. All right? To do that, we're going to take this box right here, and we're going to imagine that this box contains the whole of modern Christianity. Everything that is modern Christianity fits inside this box right here. So if we were to try to split this box, how could we go about doing that? If we took this box and split it in half, we could then call this line something like the belief on how the individual is saved from sin, or the salvation line. On the left side, we have those that believe that sins are cleansed and forgiven by the church and church officials through traditional ritualistic obligation and participation within that ritualistic system. This is the belief that church and the officials within that church have maximal authority and duty to interact with the lost in order to give them the cleansing that they need for salvation. The type of people who tend to fall within this left side venerate and hold up the sanctity and hallowedness of traditions, that the traditionalism, the rituals, offer a sort of holiness that you can only really experience through undergoing these traditions. Let's talk about the right side. This right side of the dichotomy that I have just created believe specifically that sins are cleansed and forgiven by individual prayer alone, through Jesus Christ alone, by asking in prayer for forgiveness for sins to the Father through Jesus Christ, with no church or clergy required. So if we were to actually break these two parts down and condense this argument down, we could really just call this line the church authority line. So honestly, instead of the salvational line, I'm just going to actually call this definitively the denominational line, because this is where the first schism started that created the thousands upon hundreds of thousands of denominations that we see in modern Christianity today. So on the left side, we have salvation, maximal church authority and involvement. On the right side, we have salvation, minimal church authority and involvement. So on the left side, what we have in terms of denominations that fall within the maximal church authority / involvement are the Orthodox denominations. We got Roman Orthodoxy, Eastern Orthodoxy, all sorts of miscellaneous orthodoxies, Anglicanism, the Church of England, that kind of stuff. But we also have the cults, which is pretty interesting. A lot of the cults have this idea that only they can provide you the salvation that you need. On the right side, under the subheading of Reformation denominations, we have the forefathers, the denominations that were started, at least, by the forefathers of the Protestant Reformation, which is where the major schism happened. Martin Luther, back in the Middle Ages, was a priest for the Catholic Church, had big objections with the way Catholics were going about exercising their faith. So he nailed 95 rebuttals against the Catholic Church to the door of a cathedral. And this was the single act that kickstarted what is known as the Protestant Reformation. And because of the work that Luther and Calvin and John Wesley did in creating what is known as the modern Reformation movement, we have many denominations based off of those key individuals in history. And so we have Lutherans, Calvinists, Methodists, Seventh-day Adventists. But what about this evangelical side of things? Under the subheading of evangelical denominations, we have Southern Baptists, we have Calvary Chapels, we have Pentecostals and Charismatics. Really, any one of the denominations that sprang forth from the American, distinctly United States, evangelical movement. And it's a distinctly American movement because really, the forefather of the evangelical movement, well, there were a few, but the main ones, John Darby and Schofield, were American actors. These forefather ended up becoming what we know as the evangelical movement today. And so these denominations exist because of the forefather of that denomination. Well, we can actually further break this down into another half. We're going to cut this in half again and call it the eschatological line. On the left side, we have what is known as preterism. On the right side, top quadrant, we have what is known as historicism. And on the right side, bottom quadrant, we have what is known as futurism, or also interchangeably dispensationalism. What is eschatology? Eschatology is, to put simply, the various theories and viewpoints, interpretations really, on what the Bible actually says about how the world will come to an end. The term eschatology literally means the study of the last things. So in the upper left of the quadrant, we have preterism. Well, what do preterists believe? Preterists believe that all, if not all, of the prophecies mentioned within the Bible that concern how the world will end have already been completed as of the collapse of the temple in 70 AD.